Zara Okon had never once asked the city of Creston for permission. She had simply taken space, opportunity, air, with the quiet ferocity of someone who understood early that waiting was just losing in slow motion. At 22, she had been a girl with a second-hand laptop and instant noodles and a one-room apartment on Greyfield Lane that smelled like damp concrete and ambition. At 32, she was the founder of Lumina, 41 staff strong, flagship office on the Meridian Strip, her face in the pages of Creston Tech Quarterly, under headlines she still found slightly surreal to read. She had built every inch of it herself. No investors, no connections, no wealthy uncle, just a mind that never stopped and a stubbornness her mother called recklessness and her father called, quietly, iron. The evening she met Victor Ade was unremarkable. A rooftop product launch, the kind of event she attended out of strategy rather than desire. Warm amber lights, the Creston skyline spread behind everything like it knew it was being watched. She stood at the edge with sparkling water, taking her private inventory of everything she had made when a voice arrived beside her. "You look like someone who came here because they had to." She turned. Tall, easy posture, a slow smile that didn't feel like it had been rehearsed. No tie, no performance, nothing announcing ambition. He looked like a man simply comfortable being exactly where he was. "Victor Ade," he said. "Zara Okon." She braced for the pivot, from person to profile, from Zara to Lumina Core. The CEO questions, the investor questions. It didn't come. They talked about the city, about a suya spot near Briar Market they'd both, improbably, been to. He made her laugh twice, genuinely, the kind that surprised her, and when she walked to her car afterward, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. She told Cassie about him over lunch that Thursday. "He works at a logistics firm," she said. "Dispatch coordinator." Cassie's face did something careful. "And you like him?" "He felt real," she said, like he wasn't trying to be anything. She married him on a Saturday in April, in the Creston Botanical Gardens, with yellow roses and 200 guests, and Cassie crying in the front row. She married him because when he looked at her, she felt known, not seen, known, and she had spent 32 years being seen without that. Her father had asked the month before, over a dinner so quiet she could hear the city outside, "What does he bring to this marriage, Zara, practically?" She hadn't had an answer that satisfied either of them. She told herself he was wrong. She told herself that for a long time. 6 months into the marriage, she found the first transfer. 20,000 credits, gone from her personal savings on a Tuesday she could not account for. She raised it at dinner, casual, not yet alarmed. Victor didn't miss a beat. "The car, transmission issue. I didn't want to bother you." He reached for more rice. "You are in the middle of that government contract." She vaguely remembered a conversation about the car. She let it go. She should not have let it go. 3 weeks later, another transfer, 45,000. "Maintenance on the Pembroke property," he said. "I just handled it." She made a mental note to check with her property manager. She never got around to it. Then Cassie called on a Thursday afternoon, voice doing that careful thing again. "Zara, when did Victor start having meetings with your accountant?" Victor Ade had a gift he'd never found a use for. He was charming. Not the sharp, calculated kind. The warm, effortless, almost dangerous kind that made people feel, within minutes of meeting him, that he was their person. It had carried him through 35 years without ever demanding that he carry anything back. Doors opened for Victor. He just never did the work waiting on the other side of them. 3 jobs before Zara, each one shedding him within 6 months like a body rejecting something it couldn't use. Too stressful, not the right fit. The hours were erratic. He had a talent for explanations that sounded like circumstances. He lived in Pembroke District, the neighborhood that had stalled somewhere between rising and reason. His salary at Dorado Logistics was modest. Enough, but the kind of enough that left a hunger he'd stopped naming because naming it felt like admitting something. His mother had a word for it: temporary. Ma Ade was a small woman with a large appetite for what she believed she was owed by life. She had buried a husband who died with very little, raised a son alone, and developed, through years of watching other people accumulate what she never could, an ethics that was less a compass than a negotiation. She loved Victor fiercely, possessively, in the way of a woman who had decided her son was the one thing she would not lose. When Victor told her about Zara, she went still in the way she did when a calculation was finishing. "Lumina call," she said. "You know her?" "I know of her." She picked up her tea. "She's worth quite a lot." "I like her. She's different. She doesn't—" "Yes," Ma Ade waved a hand. "Does she like you?" "She does." She looked at him for a long moment, then the slow smile. "Good," she said. "Be patient with her, Victor. Be very, very good to her." He thought she meant, "Don't ruin this." He would understand later what she actually meant. The comfort settled over him the way Harmattan warmth settles, slowly, completely, until the idea of cold feels impossible. Zara found him his first new job, then the next one. Each time, quiet, no fuss, a name mentioned to someone she knew. Each time, he lasted less. The fourth job, a coordinator role at Prism Distribution, shed him at 4 months. The pressure was unreasonable. Zara said only, "Rest. We'll figure something out." The money she sent, weekly now, a standing arrangement she'd proposed so he wouldn't worry, stopped feeling like help and started feeling like weather, just the condition of his life. He spent it the way a person spends what they've convinced themselves they deserve. His mother came to Sunday dinners and was warm in a way Victor recognized as deliberate, complimenting the apartment, the food, the furniture, calling Zara "my daughter" with a tenderness that he watched over weeks and months slowly dismantle Zara's natural caution. Zara was not a woman who trusted easily, but she trusted consistently delivered warmth. His mother knew this. She was banking it. "She's beginning to trust me," Ma Ade told Victor one evening on the phone. "She trusts us, Mama. She's family." "Yes," smooth, unbothered. "And a woman who trusts you completely, who has a lot on her mind, who has, for convenience, given you access to her accounts." She let it hang. Victor felt the discomfort he always felt in these moments. The weight in his chest he kept filing under nothing. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying," his mother said carefully, "that you deserve more than living off a woman's charity. What we do is simply correcting that. Small, careful, unnoticeable steps. A pause. She loves you too much to look closely." The line was quiet a long time. "She loves me," Victor said. "I know. That is exactly the plan." He told himself he hadn't agreed to anything. But he did not say no. And in the space between saying nothing and saying stop, the plan had already begun, quiet and patient and inevitable as water finding every crack in a foundation. He just didn't know what was already broken. Neither did Zara. But in 3 weeks, a man named Mr. Eze at Creston Central Bank would open a file on his screen and look up at her with an expression she had never seen directed at her before, and everything she had ever built would be on the table. The transfers had started small, purposefully small. Ma Ade had been precise about this. 20,000 here, 30 there. Each one beneath the automated review threshold. Each one with a story already attached in case Zara asked. The car, the property, a billing error I sorted. The stories were Victor's job. He told them smoothly, the way he did everything smoothly. And Zara, stretched thin across the government contract, the Meridian expansion, the 41 people whose salaries ran through her, accepted them because she had no reason yet not to. That was the first phase, the personal accounts. The second phase required Mrs. Fakoye. She was Ma Ade's church friend, bony, loyal, the kind of woman who had never had anything and therefore could be offered very little in exchange for quite a lot. Ma Ade had registered a shell company in Mrs. Fakoye's name, Bright Line Asset Solutions. Legitimate looking, Creston registered, completely hollow. Within 6 months, 2 of Zara's rental income streams had been quietly rerouted through it. The Aduno La commercial property, her first ever purchase, the one that felt most like proof, had its management rights transferred to Brightline through paperwork filed on a Wednesday afternoon while Zara was in a 7-hour client presentation. Victor had signed on her behalf. He had practiced the signature for 2 weeks. The third phase was the one that should have been impossible, the Lumina core operational account. Victor had access. Zara had added him 8 months ago for emergencies, she'd said. The way people say things they mean entirely and trust entirely and never imagine will be used as a door left open in a storm. He and a contact of Ma Ade's, a man named Dara who worked in private accounting and whose conscience, it turned out, had a price, had spent 6 weeks architecting a sequence of transfers that moved money out of Lumina Core in amounts too small to trigger review, but too consistent to be coincidence, if anyone had been looking. Nobody was looking. Zara was busy building. That was always the cruelty of it, Ma Ade knew. The people who made things were too busy making to watch what was being unmade behind them. Cassie was the first to see it, the way friends always are. She had been the one to mention Victor outside the accountant's office. Then, 2 weeks later, Zara, who authorized the Aduno La management transfer. My cousin works at the registry. She mentioned it and I assumed you knew. Zara had gone still. She called her property manager that evening. He hadn't authorized anything. She pulled up the Adunola file herself, found the transfer document and sat for a long moment looking at her signature at the bottom. She had not written it. She knew her own signature. She'd been signing her name on things that mattered since she was 22. The angle of the Z was wrong. The pressure of the O in Okon too heavy. Someone had practiced it. Someone close enough to study it. She did not confront Victor that night. She went to bed beside him, said good night, let him hold her, and stared at the ceiling in the dark, while her mind, that same mind she had run on black coffee and pure stubbornness for 10 years, went very quiet and very cold, and started building a list. In the morning, she called Sola Adeyemi. Sola Adeyemi was a lawyer whose reputation in Creston's legal circles was described as formidable and slightly frightening. She listened to everything Zara told her, asked 6 questions, made 2 phone calls, and then turned her laptop screen to face Zara. What Zara saw on the screen did not break her, but it came close. The personal accounts, 2 cleared. The Pembroke property, refinanced illegally, carrying debt against her name she had not created. The Lumina core operational account, 42% depleted. The Adunola property, management transferred to a shell called Bright Line Asset Solutions, registered to a woman Zara had never heard of. 7 months. Done in 7 months. Systematically, patiently, while she lay beside him at night and trusted him and sent him money for upkeep and worried whether he was happy. She sat in Sola's office and looked at the numbers and felt the ground simply go. How quickly can we move? She asked. Sola said, filing within the week. But Zara, she paused, before we do, you need to know the full picture. She turned the screen again. There was a 3rd name on the Bright Line registration. Not Ma Ade, not Mrs. Fakoye. Victor Ade, director. She drove home. She didn't know why. Some instinct. Or maybe just the need to look at the place with the truth finally in her hands. The apartment that she had furnished and paid for and filled with the careful evidence of a life she had believed in. She walked through the door and stood in the living room and looked at it. The couch where he held her when she was tired, the kitchen where he'd cooked on the 3 occasions she could now count on one hand, the shelf with the photo from the botanical gardens, yellow roses, his slow smile. Victor was sitting at the dining table when she walked in. He saw her face, and something in him closed, quietly, quickly, the way a window shuts before rain. "I know," she said, not a question. He opened his mouth. She watched him reach for his story. She could see it happening, the familiar machinery of him, the smooth reassembling, and then stop. The story didn't come. Maybe he knew there was no angle left from which it worked. "Zara. Brightline Asset Solutions," she said. "Director. You." She set the folder on the table between them. 7 months, Victor. He looked at the folder. He did not touch it. "It was my mother's idea," he said. "In the beginning, you signed my name." The room held that. "I know," he said. She had expected rage from herself, the hot, clean, usable kind her father had pointed her toward. Instead, what she felt was stranger. A grief so precise it was almost architectural, like watching a building she designed fall floor by floor in perfect silence. "Did you ever love me?" she said. "Or was I always just the plan?" He looked at her, and this was the thing she would turn over for months afterward, the thing she could not resolve. He looked at her like he was genuinely breaking, like it was real and it was too late and he knew it. "Both," he said. "And I know that's the worst answer." She picked up the folder. She walked out. The case was filed on a Tuesday. Shola Adeyemi moved like a machine. Fraud, forgery, conversion, breach of fiduciary duty, each charge layered and documented with the precision of someone who had spent a career making sure guilty people understood exactly how guilty they were. Victor's access logs, the IP traces on every transfer, Mrs. Fakoye, who cooperated before she'd even been formally approached, the handwriting expert who spent 40 minutes explaining in the kind of technical detail that made courtrooms go silent exactly how the forged signatures differed from Zara's real ones across 14 documents. Ma Ade's composure lasted 3 weeks. Then it cracked. In the depositions, in the discovery documents, in the moment she saw how thoroughly Zara had reconstructed what they'd done. She had underestimated her. They both had. They had looked at a woman in love and seen softness where there was only trust, seen blindness where there was only faith, and had mistaken her fullness for emptiness they could take from. Victor sat in his lawyer's office and looked at a sheet of paper listing probable outcomes and thought about a rooftop in Creston and a woman with a glass of sparkling water looking at the city she had built. He had been given something real. He had handed it to his mother and watched her spend it. Lumina core was not destroyed. It was close. The 42% gap in the operational account had first had conversations with the board, the loss of 2 clients, a month of Zara running on reserves she had to liquidate. She moved into the Hacker Street flat, smaller, quieter, near the university, where young people walked past every morning with laptops and futures unbroken by anyone they trusted. She rebuilt in the way she had built the first time, without permission, without waiting, without a story that required someone else's chapter to make sense. 14 months after the filing, the case closed. Victor, 18 months. Ma Ade, 24 months. Mrs. Fakoye, fines, community service, cooperation noted. The properties were returned, the accounts restored. Shola sent wine. Lumina Core's new offices were on the 31st floor of a building on the Meridian Strip, twice the size, windows on every side, Creston visible in all directions. She had not moved there to make a statement. She had moved there because the company was growing again, faster than before,
with a ferocity that had something different in it now. Less like ambition, more like certainty. The kind that comes from knowing exactly what you are made of because someone tested it. Cassie found her at the window the morning of the recovery announcement. "How do you feel?" Cassie asked. Zara looked at the city. "It's like I can see further now," she said. She had a meeting in 5 minutes. She did not make people wait.